Welcome to DLNR Revealed. The topic for today is the Hawaiian Islands Humpback Whale National Marine Sanctuary. Today we will be talking with two very special ladies that have the awesome job of protecting our state's marine mammal, the humpback whale. We have Malia Chow, who is the sanctuary superintendent under NOAA, and we have Aaliyah Herman, who is the state co-manager under DLNR. Both of these ladies grew up here in the state of Hawaii and are well connected with the marine environment. We're going to start here today with Malia. And Malia, can you tell us a little bit about the sanctuary program?
Yeah, thanks so much, Patty. We're really pleased to be here to talk about the Hawaiian Islands Humpback Whale Sanctuary. You know, the sanctuary was designated almost 20 years ago by Congress. So we're about to have our 20th year birthday this year. And its primary purpose was to protect humpback whales and their habitat here in the Hawaiian Islands. Now, what are sanctuaries? Well, sanctuaries protect special places in the marine environment, and we're part of the National Marine System of Sanctuaries, where, as you can see here in this image, there are 14 sites in the national system. And the mission of NOAA's National Marine Sanctuaries is to really serve as a trustee for NOAA's system of marine protected areas. In 1972, when the system was first created, it had been almost 100 years since the first national park was created. So once these marine protected places were put in place, we've had now 14 sites that are created.
Here in the state, is the sanctuary in the entire state, cover all the waters around the Hawaiian Islands, or are there specific areas?
Yeah, well, the Hawaiian Islands Humpback Whale Sanctuary actually covers close to 1 million acres of marine area. And on the slide here, I think you can see the boundaries. There are 5 connected areas across the state of Hawaii, with the primary sanctuary being in the Maui Nui complex.
Okay, and how was that established?
So the sanctuary was established by Congress, and I think Aaliyah is going to talk a little bit about the state role. So it's a federal-state partnership. It's one of the only federal-state partnerships in the marine waters surrounding the islands here in Hawaii.
And did they decide that those red areas were places that had lots more whales than other places?
Yeah, you know, the thing is, it's a species that moves around a lot, but yes, studies actually have revealed that these boundaries show where the whales happen to be present the most, and it's preferred habitat for humpback whales. It actually is in the shallow waters out to the 100-fathom isobath.
And that's why there's so much of that water around the Maui Nui area.
That's right.
Now,
yeah.
Where are the offices located?
Well, we have 4 offices. There's 2 on Oahu, and 1 in Lahui on Kauai, 1 on Maui, and then 1 out on the Big Island.
Okay, and you have a visitor center somewhere?
Yeah, we actually have a really popular visitor center in Kihei, Maui, where we get a lot of visitors and members of the community that come out to visit us.
Okay, so thank you. Let's go to Aaliyah here for a minute. And Aaliyah is with DLNR, and she started as co-manager here in July of this last year. And I want you to explain to us, how do the state and federal government work together on this, and what advantages are there to the state of Hawaii to be part of the federal sanctuary program?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having us here. This is great. And I'm just really honored to be able to be part of the sanctuary, which is something, as you mentioned, I grew up, born and raised here, spent a lot of time also off Maui studying the whales. To be able to come back home and be the state co-manager for the sanctuary it's really an honor. And it's also just a really unique relationship where this sanctuary that was established by Congress is co-managed by both the federal government and the state. So in 1998, the state and through the state signed a compact agreement with NOAA saying, okay, this is something that we're going to work on together. This doesn't pass on any authority. The state still maintains all its authority. The governor has to approve everything that goes forward, but this is something that we're going to work together to bring all of our resources to bear to really work on protecting these resources. So since 1998, this has been a true partnership. It's managed through the state, through DLNR, and so I work with the DLNR. And it's really a great opportunity for the state of Hawaii, because as we all know, there's limited resources out there, and what this co-management arrangement allows us to do is bring federal resources to bear, so federal funding, federal personnel, and also the expertise of NOAA to bear to help us protect and preserve and restore Hawaii's marine resources, specifically right now the humpback whales, now into the future for both residents and visitors alike.
Sounds like a great partnership. And Malia, are there many of these partnerships between state and federal government in the sanctuary program?
There actually are just a couple of examples, but we found that it really works best when you work with the local state government because they have connections to the communities to get them involved.
The whole thing. Okay, Malia, can you tell us a little bit more about the focus of the program and what exactly does the Humpback Whale Sanctuary do?
Yeah, that's a really good question. What does the sanctuary do? So the humpback whale actually migrates and spends its winter months here in the islands, and during the month of February, it's actually the peak season when whales are here in large numbers. And the numbers have been increasing over time. So what our job is to make sure that ocean users are safe around whales. And so what we try to do is offer a lot of public awareness and outreach to make sure that they understand that there is an approach rule that people need to maintain. So we ask, and it's actually part of the sanctuary regulation, that ocean users stay about 100 yards, maintain that distance. Now we understand that whales move around and boats use around, but to the extent you can, try to maintain that distance.
And this is for safety of both people and the boats and the whales.
Yes.
When it comes down to that.
Yeah.
What are some of the problems that the whales face here, or threats?
Yeah, one of the biggest threats with humpback whales actually around the world is entanglement by marine debris that's in the water. It's also vessel strikes because there's a lot of interaction with whales. We run a program in collaboration with the state of Hawaii, NOAA Fisheries, and U.S. Coast Guard to actually do a disentanglement program. And what you see on that image is that several of our staff and our partners actually get in the water and try to disentangle whales when they can do it safely.
Okay, the first video segment we're going to show you here is of some debris on the whale. Tell me a little bit, how big is this debris? How does it get entangled? What parts of the body? And how do they pick it up and where?
Well, anything in the ocean really is a cause for potential entanglement, but the one that seems to be the most risk are ropes and lines that actually can entangle the whales. And what we have here is some rope that was actually removed from a humpback whale. I think to date, since the sanctuary has been running this disentanglement program, it's removed over 22 football fields if you stretch out the rope in length from whales.
And that's amazing. And I know they also have removed things like anchors that have come off of boats and huge crab pots. And it's amazing that the whales can survive throughout this. Tell us a little bit, this next video segment we're going to see here shows a little bit about the whale and the boat. Can you describe how the guys go about disentangling? How do you catch a whale?
Yeah, well, please, first of all, for our viewers, do not try this at home. These are highly trained experts that actually go around the world with these trainings because it's capacity we want to share with others. And it actually originates with our site. But what they do, it's like the whalers in the early days. They actually have to go out and find the whale. And there's a lot of support from different users on the water that identify them, whether they're whale watching tours or fishermen who spot an entangled whale. So there's a lot of support from the community, and we send our responders out. And what they do is they try to first have to slow down the whale. You do not want to approach a rapidly moving whale, so they actually will put buoys on it to slow down the whale and actually get them and a satellite tag, because eventually the whale will get tired and they need to know where the whale ended up.
Okay, so once they slow it down, then what happens?
Well, they assess the situation, and if it's safe, they get closer, and they actually have like a harpoon, but it's actually a long pole with a cut at the end. It's a blade to try to safely cut off the rope.
So these guys are in this boat that's moving along like this, and they're cutting off the whale, and what a challenge. Yeah, and again, you said how much rope has been removed?
Well, you know, this is just an example. There's all sorts of different rope, but if you just put it end to end, I've been told it's close to 22 football fields.
Wow. So that is one of the stellar programs of the Sanctuary program. How do you reach the public and get them to know about this?
Well, there's a lot of ocean safety boater user workshops that are held around the state. I think that there are a lot of people who need to understand how to operate safely around a whale and really what the whale regulations are. It's also an opportunity to engage the different users if there's a call for distress, who to contact and how to get the sanctuary or other of our partners to do a response. And I just wanted to add, Patty, that with these kinds of programs, I think it's really important that there are trained experts who do this, and so please to contact the experts if they see an entangled whale.
And I understand a lot of the public is getting involved in this.
Yeah.
And that's from teaching about it. Okay, now along with that, the sanctuary does a lot of education and outreach also. What are some of the examples of those programs?
Well, I mentioned a lot of outreach to ocean users, but there's a lot of information that people want to know about whales themselves. And I think Aaliyah will talk a little bit about the biology of the whales. But we have a program every year called Ocean Count. That's where hundreds of volunteers around the state actually go to defined locations and help us do a census, if you will, of how many whales are out there. I think over the years that we've seen increasing numbers, so there's good news about whales in Hawaii. The other programs that we do also include with our very strong volunteer program, who are very interested in supporting the sanctuary. They go out and do outreach booths to really inform not just people of Hawaii, but also a lot of visitors who come here specifically to Hawaii to see humpback whales.
So they're interacting with the public all over the state. You also are running lecture kind of series?
We do a lot of school groups to make sure that kids understand humpback whales and their mating and calving behaviors here in the islands. We run a lot of, the sanctuary has done a lot of outreach and education to really increase awareness about not just humpback whales, but other important resources in the state of Hawaii.
So school kids, you're reaching kids from preschool kids up through college and adults. The education goes a long way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then also working, as you can see here, you've got kids working on computers trying to teach some of the technology and get them to understand how research is done. Research also being another big part of what the sanctuary does.
Right.
And when you talk about ocean etiquette, can you explain kind of what that means to us? What is ocean etiquette?
Well, I think that there's people need to understand that there are appropriate behaviors on the water in order to maintain safety. So ocean etiquette for us is our opportunity to really share with them sort of best practices and how you want to behave around humpback whales.
Awesome. Great programs going on with the sanctuary. We're going to take a few minutes here now and go to Aaliyah. We're going to talk about the whale itself, this thing that the sanctuary does such a good job about talking about. Aaliyah, how many whales are there around Hawaii here, and where do they come from?
Well, I'm glad you asked. This is really sort of the fun part of the sanctuary is the whales themselves, which are such a tremendous resource and really a symbol of Hawaii. And now we have about 12,000 whales that come here each year. And just to take a step back, I mean, these were whales that a couple of decades ago were at the brink of extinction from hunting. And now they've just made this tremendous increase. Their population's growing at 7% a year. And we are now home to the largest seasonal population in the entire world and the largest breeding and mating grounds in the North Pacific. So it's really been a tremendous victory for the whales. And one of the interesting things is, as the whales come back, as managers, what does that mean for us? And it actually increases the number of what we have to do because there's more whales, so there's more people asking questions, there's more opportunity for interaction. So how can we do a better job to making sure that those interactions are healthy and safe? But to give you a little bit more background about the whale, so see if you, we have here the humpback whale. It has its long pectoral fins, which are one of the most unique features of the humpback whales. They're about 15 feet long, so massive, massive pectoral fins. And this is the whole body of the whale is about 45 feet long. And 15 feet is also about how long a calf is when it's born. And one of the most important features for scientists is the humpback whale tail fluke. And this tail fluke is like a fingerprint. So the same way that we can tell individuals apart with our fingerprints, each whale fluke is unique. And so that has to do with the coloration pattern from all black to all white and everything between, as well as the trailing edge of the fluke, which has a whole series of notches, again, that help us identify individual whales. And when you can identify an individual whale, that means you can trace a life history. So we have some whales that we've now seen in these waters for 30 years, and we can say how many times we saw it was a mom, and what kinds of groups it were in. So it can help us start to build this picture of what is the life of a humpback whale, what is that social behavior. And on the mating grounds, there's such a tremendous array of different kinds of activities going on. So you have moms and calves. You have single animals, males, that are singing this mysterious haunting song that still remains a mystery to scientists. It's actually, an interesting point about that is it's different than a bird song. So people think, oh, humpback whale song, bird song, it must have a similar feature. But actually, the only whales that have ever been seen to approach a singing humpback whale are other males. Whereas when you look at birds, it's females that sing, that are attracted to the males. And so there's all of this mystery. We also have competitive groups. And a competitive group is one female, single female, and a whole bunch of males, 2 to sometimes 20 males that are swimming around her, competing for access to that female to mate. But despite all of this, despite these decades of research and all of this different information, no one has ever seen humpback whales mate. It's still one of the greatest mysteries is when is it happening? How is it being decided? Is it male competition? Is it female choice? Is it some combination? And so it's really still a very exciting world of mystery out there in terms of understanding the complex social system of the humpback whales.
And when you think about these whales and how huge they are and they're underwater, you don't put them in a tank at any point. So that as you're studying them, the researchers have got to depend on a lot of other things than just the visual seeing them up close to do this, which makes it more difficult to see what they're doing. Now, out here in the water, we see the humpback whales doing all kinds of behaviors. What, if I'm going to go out on the beach and look for the whales, what might I see?
You will see a lot of different behaviors. You'll see what are sometimes called peck slaps. So again, I mentioned these 15-foot long flippers. They take them and they slap them on the water. And there's a lot of different theories, again, why they're doing that kind of behavior. You'll also see tail slaps, so very similar thing, but slapping the tail down on the water. You'll see breaches, which is the whale taking its full body out of the water. And I will say, as a scientist, I have been in the water filming these whales, and all it takes is 2 or 3 pumps of their tail fluke, and that shoots them out of the water. So it really gives you a sense of the great strength of these animals. You'll also see these competitive behaviors. So as I mentioned before, you have these groups of males surrounding a female. They're fighting, they're charging each other, slamming into each other. Sometimes you'll even see blood on their nodules on their heads, and you'll see these head lunges or head slaps. So a lot of different aggressive behaviors in some of the groups. And then you'll also see moms, and occasionally there's been moms and calves. There's been some footage captures of moms nursing their calves. So all kinds of behaviors out there. And one thing I should add, one of the really neat things you can do when you're here, when you're in the winter months, especially if you're off Maui, I mentioned that the humpback whales, the males, sing. If you are just snorkeling or even swimming right off the beach, maybe you dive down about 4 feet and you listen very carefully and you can hear the humpback whale song anywhere in that Maui Nui complex.
Oh, that's awesome. It means everybody's got to go to Maui now to visit, doesn't it? Yeah. So how long does the baby stay with the mom?
The baby stays with the mom for about a year. So it's a year gestation period, or the mom is pregnant for about a year. She gets pregnant in Hawaii. Then she migrates up to Alaska, where she feeds, migrates back down to Hawaii, and gives birth. And then she'll stay with that calf for 1 year, taking that calf on that same journey, nursing it, teaching it how to feed, and bringing it back down.
Okay, why would they bother to swim back and forth that long distance, and why would you go to Alaska?
Sure. Well, it's a 3,000-mile migration, so it's a very good question. You don't want to do something like that unless you have a very good reason. So up in Alaska are these cool, nutrient-rich waters, which are where the humpback whales go to feed, and that's really what they need to sustain themselves. And there's a lot of different theories about why they migrate, but the prevailing theory is that it's really for the calves. It's so the mothers come down to these much warmer, shallow, protected waters, and that's really what the calves need to survive and thrive in those early months. And so during the time when the whales are down here in Hawaii, they are fasting, except for the calves. So they're coming down here to feed and nurture their young, and then where females go, the males follow, as we've learned. And so that's the general theory about why this migration occurs. And you do see, we don't see all the animals every year, and so there is a thought that sometimes if a female isn't ready to give birth, that she might stay and overwinter. So just stay in Alaska and keep feeding and keep building up her reserves.
Okay, can you tell me a little bit about the actual feeding?
Yes, so it's real. There's a number of different styles of feeding, but one of the most interesting is this lunge feeding and bubble net feeding. And the way a whale feeds is, I'm not sure if this is visible, but the humpback whale has these pleats on the underside of their jaw and their belly, and those pleats allow them to inflate, and they can unhinge their jaws, inflate these pleats, and go through the water, capturing water as well as fish or krill. So in Alaska, they're usually eating herring, and then so humpback whales are baleen whales, and baleen are these plates with hairs essentially on the end, and they're made up of the same thing that our fingernails and our hair is made of. And so the water and the fish come through into their mouths, and then the water gets filtered out, but the fish stay in. And they do this really coordinated effort where you sometimes will have one whale going around the group making essentially a wall of bubbles, and then there'll be a feeding call by another whale, and then all of the animals will come up together in this magnificent display and feed on this group of herring that's been pushed together by both the bubble wall and this feeding call.
Awesome, awesome. And obviously something they got to do in Alaska because we don't have that down here.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you, Aaliyah. Great talk here about what the whales are themselves. Let's go back to Malia again. And Malia, tell me, what is the future of the sanctuary program? What's out there to come?
Well, as you've heard, the sanctuary has focused primarily on humpback whales, and I think we are now asking the question, are there other resources in the state of Hawaii that also need additional protections? So for the last 20 years, we've been a single species sanctuary. NOAA started a process a couple years ago to actually ask the question, what do people in Hawaii, what does the general public think about the sanctuary adding additional resources and perhaps expanding its focus? So what we've done, and we're right in the middle of the process, is we went out to the public and had meetings around the state, information meetings to say, what are your concerns that you have about the sanctuary? And what we're showing here are several public meetings that we've held. We've asked the public what are their primary concerns affecting waters around Hawaii. So what we're doing is something we call a management plan review. We periodically have to assess our management and do an evaluation about what's working, what's not working. And so I think as we move forward, we have heard from the public, and what we plan to do over the next couple of years is put together a proposal about how the sanctuary may or may not be involved in protecting additional resources. Not just humpback whales, but maybe even other species, other habitats, and even cultural resources.
I'm guessing that as you went out to these different islands that you got real different feedback from the groups of each island's very different.
Yeah, I think people needed to understand NOAA, the relationship with the state. There was a lot of support from different communities. We made it a point to go into different communities, those that are pretty much connected to the resources and earn their livelihood or work and play on the ocean. Yeah, we've heard a variety of different things. Some people feeling the sanctuary can do more, and other people thinking the whales have come back and so the sanctuary has done its job.
I think what sounds exciting about this is that people are involved, and it's not just the sanctuary making decisions, but like you said, you've been out in the community and you'll be going back out again, correct?
Yeah, this is a long process of public engagement. We want to make sure that people know they have a voice in this. This is not something that we know the outcome of. We want to give people an opportunity to really express their concerns or what they think the sanctuary should be doing. That's why a process like this management plan review takes many years.
Okay, thank you. Aaliyah, how can people get involved in the sanctuary?
Well, I just wanted to add to what Malia says. I think this is a really exciting time for the sanctuary where we, NOAA, the state, and all of the people of Hawaii can take a step back and say, what does Hawaii need and what can we do? How can we, again, in this time of scarce resources, what's the greatest need and how can we get there to protect our resources and to ensure that they're there for people to use and enjoy into the future. And so the public engagement is a huge part of this, and throughout our management plan review process there's going to be a number of opportunities, both formal and informal, for people to get engaged. But the best way to sort of track all of this is through the website. That's where everything's going to be kept up to date, and so that's Hawaii Humpback Whale .noaa.gov.
Okay.
but this is really this is a public process, and for this to work, we need people to step up. We need people to go to the website. We need people to call our offices and tell us what they think and help be our partners in this moving forward, so we can make the decisions that are best for Hawaii.
Okay, and as you see the website that's up here, there's quite a bit on the website there of information about the sanctuary, about the species, about what is going on, and lots of opportunities to get involved in many different ways. You know, part of it is through this process. And Malia, what are some other things that the public can do, just as far as the volunteering or getting involved in citizen scientific projects? Do these happen around here?
Yes, well, first of all, the sanctuaries are very much connected to communities and create help to support the programs. We do have water quality monitoring. There are a lot of opportunities to be involved. So we encourage you to go to the website, read about our different programs, and contact us. We'd love to have more people assist us.
Okay, and to get involved in all of this. We have about a minute or two here left here. I'd like to ask you both, what is probably the most exciting part of this job to you, Aaliyah?
Well, obviously, I've probably seen me talk about the humpback whales. You can see that that's something that's really exciting. But probably the most interesting and rewarding part of my job has been getting to talk with and meet so many different people in so many different communities. And I think that's something that, again, is really interesting and exciting about what we're doing right now, is that we have the opportunity to meet the needs not only of the state as a whole, but also of the individual communities, and getting to hear those perspectives and work with those different people. And it's such a diverse array of fascinating, smart folks, and it's been really neat.
Awesome. Malia, what's the
Yeah,
best
well,
part
just
to you?
really briefly, I wouldn't be in this job if I really didn't believe that communities and the people in Hawaii have a voice and opportunity to really shape what the sanctuary looks like. We've been focused on humpback whales, and as you've heard, there's a lot of enthusiasm about it. It's what connects people to the ocean. But underneath that deep blue, there's a lot of other resources, and there are a lot of other issues facing Hawaii. And I feel it's incredibly important right now to really ask that question, how can we be more involved in protecting Hawaii's resources now and into the future? So for me, this is a tremendous opportunity to sort of give back to the community that I grew up in.
This is awesome. And as I started this program, I said we've got these two special women who are leading the charge for the humpback whales and a lot of our marine environmental issues, and real glad to have you guys here with us today. I want to thank you for being with us. Great information about the sanctuary program, about the whales. Makes me want to get out there and see the whales and get involved, and I encourage all of you to go do that and find a way to, like I said, get involved with the program. Again, thank you, and from the Humpback Whale Sanctuary.